Okay, so I've lived here forever. Born on 3rd Street in Geneva, at where the Geneva Community Hospital was. Long gone now. I moved to St. Charles for junior high. Then I went to prom with this lovely young lady here. That was our 4th date. And we made it official in 1979, so I married my high school sweetheart. Anybody else married their high school sweetheart? There you go. That's a pretty good deal, actually. It works out pretty well. You know, you save yourself from a lot of the crud that kids get married in 30. Oh, they got married early these days in their 30s. What? What is that crazy these days? Kids these days. She was a stay-at-home mom for 30 years. I'm not sure how we did that. We cut back on vacations and didn't go out to dinner a lot. But when our baby went off to college, Rita ran for city council. She was an alderman in St. Charles for 12 years. Just retired 2 weeks ago. This is the groundbreaking at Wahlburgers. There you go. I didn't know that I had married a politician. One more reason I love Batavia is that my daughter lives here with her cousin. Her cousin bought a house, my brother's daughter, and the two of them live up on Hamlet Street up there, backing up to some factories, I believe. But this is my daughter, Ray Ann there she is, lovely. And the reason I love Ray Ann even more, though, is she hit the home run. She went to West Point and hit the home run that sent them to the NCAA tournament. And there's a longer story there. But the coolest thing Rayanne did was co-write my most recent book with me, and that's Girl Dad. There's a longer story there. I brought some copies today. That's just out. The last week it was released. So if you know a dad raising a little girl, especially between that 8 and 20 years, that era when you can even remember that. Remember when your daughter was that teenage years kind of thing. It's especially good for that. So if you know a Girl Dad, this is Rayanne's first book, and it is my 38th book. It sold 2/3 of a million copies of books. Most of them with Christian publishers, Tyndale and Harvest House and Dayspring and Multnomah. And then these last 2 books were actually with a mainstream publisher, Chronicle, based out of San Francisco, with Ray for Grandparents, The Newlywed Year, both very giftable. That kind of is part of the design. Really nice books. So I've got those are the 2. Those are some of the books I'm looking to move today. I'm not hard selling at all. These 2 also for Father's Day, if you know a dad, and if you know a graduate, very timely things to show. Okay. I showed you Rayanne. These are my 4 sons. They're all out in the world. I'm glad because they're paying my Social Security eventually here, coming up. They all found, my 4 boys found 4 wonderful women. And here's one of my favorite shots ever. This is Thanksgiving football with my 4 sons, 4 daughters-in-law, and my daughter. We didn't know it at the time, but the blonde on the left was pregnant with my first grandson. So I don't care about these people anymore. I don't care about them anymore. Here's who I care about. Okay, so let's jump into this idea of grandparenting. One of the best things about being a grandparent that you didn't think about, most people don't even think about, is that you get to pick a new name. It's fascinating. You have a name, and you have that name for 60 years, and then all of a sudden you have another name, and sometimes you don't even think about it. It's replaced. My bride, Rita, was eager to be a grandma, so she chose the name Grandma. Grama. She wants it spelled that way. That's 10 years ago. We are celebrating. Last week we celebrate 10 years as grandparents. Rita did not attempt to disguise her identity with Birdie or Marnie or Gigi or something. Grandma, perfect. And I was thinking the same way, Gramps. I like that. A little one-syllable Gramps. Then two of my daughter-in-laws got together and said, "Oh no, we're not going to call you Gramps. We're going to call you Chief." I'm going, that's pretty good. I like that. I'm not a fire chief or Indian chief or police chief, but there you go. Will you call me Chief? If you call me Chief, I will respond. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. What do they call you? Give me some fun, interesting names. What do they call you? What do they call you?
Grandpa.
Grandpa.
Farfar.
Farfar.
Papa.
Papa?
Mimi.
Mimi? Okay, that was my mom. Yes, anybody else who wants to share?
Maga.
MAGA? Not MAGA, like Make America Great Again. That's terrible. Spell MAGA.
M-O-N-G-A.
Oh, M-O-N-G-A. Okay, sorry.
He reversed the grandma.
Don't get me in trouble. Anybody else want to share their name?
Pops.
Pop. Okay, so Pop and Papa and Mimi over here. Okay. When I'm talking to brand new grandparents, I tell them this is something you got to think about. You want to think about, or if your daughter-in-law is pregnant, you got to think about this ahead of time. I do have today I'm going to kind of talk through some of my chapters, and then I'm going to read a few chapters, kind of jump between the two of them if that's okay. There's that critical window, the first few months, before the little guy or gal, grandkid starts talking, then you got to kind of decide. You have a few months to decide, but don't wait too long, because after much debate, you may finally say, well, you can call me, they're going to call me Papa, but then that rascal, the grandfather on the other side, might choose that first. And that's just tragic, of course, because you lose your name then. So pick a good one. Maybe it really doesn't matter. Whatever they call you is magic, of course. And that reminds me of one of the pages in the book. The book is really so well designed. Of course, there are words on the pages, but also there are other little words. And this is my quote. You can use it if you want. There's no sweeter sound than a grandchild running through your front door, calling your name. Chief, Chief. Fantastic. All right. Here we go. Another chapter is where do you do your best grandparenting? This is something that you have to decide. You have to think about. You have to think about where are you going to do your best grandparenting. Could be a workshop, or a garden, or your home office, or a porch swing, or a kitchen sink. You need to identify a place where you can kind of go shoulder to shoulder, working on stuff with your grandkids, and then sometimes turn and go nose to nose. It might be in your car. It could be a favorite booth at McDonald's where you take your 12-year-old grandson or granddaughter out and just connect with them a little bit there. Find a spot where you can engage that eye-to-eye thing and heart-to-heart. When they're newborns, that's pretty easy. Just grab a rocking chair and pick them up and get that 12, 18 inches kind of a thing where they can focus on you and breathe in their scent and rest them on your chest. And that's not just grandmas, that grandpas should do that too, of course. And when they're toddlers, it's also kind of easy, but you want to get on the same level with them. On the carpet racing Hot Wheels, or building Legos, or doing talking stuffed animals with each other. Maybe it's your front lawn. I love this shot. This is Jack and me. Jack just turned 10, and actually, a couple weeks ago, I laid in the grass with Reese, and we were identifying cloud shapes. So that's a great place, too. That's a great place that we connect. And then when your grandkids turn about 3, you want to invest in 2 stools. And you know what they're for. You've been around this. You know one is to pull up to the kitchen table or a desk and chat with them. And one is for them to stand on so they can help you, so you can teach them how to pound in a nail or roll out pizza dough or that kind of thing. The whole point is that you are hanging out with them, and because they are counting on life lessons and then lessons on life. Over the years, you have demonstrated that you can demonstrate that you can hit your thumb with a hammer, or out in the garden cut through a buried TV cable. Not that I've done either of those things. You can do that, and if they're with you, you can say, life goes on. You know what? You go, that's frustrating. but then life goes on. It's really important for grandparents to teach their grandkids because they're going to get cut from a basketball team or get dumped by a girlfriend, and life goes on. You know what? The Overstreets, we're pretty good at getting through those times. Cruddy stuff happens sometimes. Hard stuff happens, but we get through that because we're sharp and we plow through. And you can say that. If that's coming from mom or dad, it sounds kind of lame. But coming from grandpa or grandma or papa or Mimi or Yaya or Fufu or Manga, Fufu, that sounds like wisdom for the ages. All right, let's read a chapter. Chapter 8. Page 44. Page 44. About the other grandparents. Hate to break it to you, but you are not the only grandparents in your grandchild's life, which means your obligatory goal, being the favorite grandparent, is not going to be awarded to you just for showing up. You got work to do. Well, who else is in the race? Every family is different, but near the top of that list is probably your own spouse. Then, of course, your child's partner has parents. In addition, there may be other former partners, in-laws or favorite aunts or uncles who may be climbing in the rank of favorite. Competition may even come from some neighbor or babysitter that you don't even know about. One day you might be playing Candyland with little Sophie, and she'll say something like, "Gam Gam lets me go over the Rainbow Bridge every time." When that happens, you need to track down that Gam Gam and insist that she play by the rules of Candyland, and stop trying to edge you out as the favorite grandparent. Well, in truth, positive role models and playmates of any age are good for your grandkids, and I can attest to feelings of both gratitude and jealousy when it comes to the other grandparents in the lives of Judah and Jackson, Emerson, Gideon, Reese, Nolan, Finn, and Nixon. My youngest son named his son Nixon, and he didn't. Never mind. This is not gonna. He's not gonna see this, will he? He knows it's time. Okay. I also know that Rita. Oh shoot. Cut that out. Edit that out. I also know Rita and I are blessed beyond measure by those other grandparents, and there's plenty of love to go around. For context, 3 of our grandkids live in our hometown, St. Charles. 2 live in the next county. But Rita and I are still the closest grandparents, and then 3 live 150 miles away in Peoria, and they are in the same city as the other grandparents. Proximity is not the only factor in connecting with grandkids. Rita excels at snuggling newborns. That helps. Anytime she's holding one of her infant grandkids, of course, she's the favorite. I know that I am in the running for favorite grandparent when kids are between the ages of 3 and 5. That's because my natural instinct is to give horsey rides, listen to their stories, wrestle, ooh and ah over caterpillars. I do that very well. I give noogies very well, and I make sandcastles and balloon animals. When they mature beyond that age, sometimes I make the mistake of trying too hard to teach them lessons and life principles, which doesn't always go over so well, and that causes me to lose points. Excuse me. You might be in competition with grandparents who have an advantage of living with the grandkids or having more time and more money. They may have fun stuff like a trampoline or swimming pool or basketball hoop or giant backyard or jungle gym. Maybe they live on a farm or own a boat or have a beach house. Grandparents who live in a skyscraper in the big exciting city definitely have an advantage with some kids, especially the older grandkids. To claim the coveted title, you might find yourself allowing unlimited ice cream, video marathons, or bedtimes that go against mom or dad's instructions. How dare you? I don't recommend it. On the other hand, it's probably okay if your rules are a little more lenient than at home Furthermore, cash bribery is not allowed. Closing out this chapter, let me reiterate, be grateful for every person of any age who truly loves your grandchildren, and for every person you truly love. I really do appreciate the wonderful grandparents all my grandchildren have on the other side. Still, I do not take the quest to be the favorite lightly. If this book is picked up and read by Richard or Linda or Dave, Deb, Marty or Kathy, or even Rita, let me assure you the battle is on. And I gotta finish this with the fact that I wrote this, went to press, came out about 1.5 years ago now, and in the meantime, Marty, who was the other grandfather down in Peoria, 59 years old, dropped dead of a heart attack. Bam. And so my kids lost their favorite grandpa. So there's lessons there, you know. Don't work too hard to be the favorite, and just appreciate everybody that's in your kids' lives. And who knows, be ready anytime. Okay. All right, sorry. God bless you, Marty. You're a good man. Okay. Advantages of living close. Don't worry, the next chapter is advantages of living far away. If you live close, there's twice as much applause at soccer games and concerts and recitals. The kids know that, they hear that. And when mom and dad can't be there, it's even more important for grandma or gramps to be there. When you live close, holiday travel plans are easier. Seats get saved on parade routes. Fireworks and football games and church pews. Last-minute babysitters are very much appreciated when you live close. Another benefit is that visits are shorter. There's no reason to overstay your welcome. There are no dramatic, tear-filled driveway goodbyes because you'll see each other again later that week probably, or next. And when the kids are getting cranky, or grandpa needs a nap, it's a short drive home, no hard feelings, and plus you can expect quick drop-ins. When you live close, you know, at our house in the middle of a busy day, Megan will pull up in the driveway to drop off a package or borrow a tool or pick up a lost backpack or such. The kids jump out for 10 minutes, give some hugs, laugh a little bit, get in the car and go home. And also lawns get mowed, cookies getting made, life gets shared. If you've ever seen Everybody Loves Raymond, you know that maybe there might be a downside to living too close. Just don't be like Frank Barone, or Marie for that matter, okay? Promise me that? But there are advantages to living far away. Some of you only get to hug your grandkids, maybe at most 2 or 3 times a year, or maybe even less sometimes. So let's toss out some strategies and actually benefits for long-distance grandparenting. Maybe it comes down to sometimes intentionality then. Grandparents who live in town take it for granted. Their grandkids for granted. Interactions, if you live close, might not be cherished as much. It might even become hit or miss. But when hours of travel are required, planning becomes intentional. Purposeful visits at their place or yours, they lead to more meaningful time together. Those 2 or 3 visits, those visits are usually 2 or 3 days then, or longer. And they're filled with planned activities and thoughtful meal preparation and memorable benchmarks. I remember when we went there. It's benchmark time, not routine. It's an event. Also, you're more likely to plan joint vacations. Maybe meet at a location halfway between the 2 places, 2 homes. You know, book a week at a summer family camp. Destinations then become memories. One obvious option, of course, is FaceTime, Skype or Zoom, that kind of thing. And that's one of the blessings of COVID. Can I say that? I mean, we all know kind of how to do that. It's kind of routine now. It's okay to interact face to face on a screen. It's not so weird anymore. So there you go. Another strategy is when grandkids get their own phone, and we'll let the mom and dad decide that. Go ahead once in a while, send a text. Not this big, weird, weepy kind of creepy thing, but just, hey, you know what? That squirrel attacked my bird feeder again. And just send that away, and if they get back to you right away, awesome. If not, that's also fine too. That's how texting works. You can also send photos, share photos. Again, and if you do it, not once a month, but if you do it a few times a week, it becomes like this fun little thing then. That'd be a good strategy for using texting and such. And I'm not sure kids email anymore. It's all this texting. Okay. And the post office is still making deliveries. So you know what? A postcard. Imagine your 4-year-old or 5-year-old getting some postcard from you, and printed it out, and they can sound out those words. What a great thing that is. We don't do that. None of you have done that in the last year. But send a postcard to your 5-year-old grandson or great-grandson. That will make the mail. Who gets mail anymore? It's a fantastic thing. And you can also order things on Amazon and change the ship to address. And you don't have to deal with it. Just order it, and it shows up at the door. So that would be one of the benefits. There are advantages for living far away. Also, you have some math skills. Such as juggling or whistling or drawing caricatures or twisting balloon animals or playing spoons or magic tricks. You all have some, you don't even think about them anymore because you do it. It's just fun, something who you are. That needs to be passed on to your grandkids. If you know how to play the spoon, pass that on. If you know how to twist balloon animals, pass that on. Skip a generation. You may have never taught that to your kids, but pass that on. Chapter 35. One more sip of water. We'll call this a teachable moment missed. My dad's parents, my dad grew up in Racine, Wisconsin. Excuse me. There wasn't much to do at Nana and Grandpa's house. The one corner of the old house we were allowed to explore was Grandpa Fritz's workbench in the basement. After an unfortunate turn of events, even that would become off limits. On one visit, my brother Mark and I had been in the dank basement playing secret agent and pretending one of Grandpa's unusual tools was a machine gun. Who knows what a basin wrench is? Who knows what a basin wrench is? Okay. You know what a basin wrench is? Picture it to an 8 and 9-year-old. That's kind of looks like a machine gun. Okay. As part of our game, we happened to hide that basin wrench under a chair cushion, and there it remained for weeks afterward. Eventually, Grandpa needed his basin wrench and was upset with himself for misplacing it. Later, the wrench was found, and immediately, Mark and I became prime suspects. After an accusatory and unpleasant long-distance phone call, we confessed to the crime and were promptly forbidden from touching any of Grandpa's tools again. I get that, right? I mean, I get that. I get it. I totally get it. It wasn't until years later that I would learn what a basin wrench was even used for. Looking back, I completely understand the old man's frustration. But it makes me sad that such a minor incident put up a wall that lasted, well, probably the entire final decade of our relationship. He never really seemed to let go of it, only adding to my feeling of guilt. At the time, Mark and I were goofy kids who made a mistake. A few years later, we were teenagers with other priorities. Grandpa would pass away after I went off to college. How might that relationship have turned around? How do I wish that Fritz would have responded? It's easy to say now, but I can think of at least 3 ways that negative experience could have been turned into a positive. And you may want to take notes. That's what it says here, at least. First, grandparents need to acknowledge that grandkids are kids. Mark and I were clearly at fault, but there was no animosity or evil intent beyond our youthful lapse of judgment. Second, taking that idea a step further, maybe, and stay with me here, grandparents should have the attitude that our grandkids can do no wrong. That may be a bit of an overstatement, but this idea suggests another way that grandparenting is so different than parenting. This is chapter 35. I've kind of established that early on. So when you're reading along, you go, grandparenting is different than parenting. Parents are busy. Grandparents are not quite as busy. They can be busy, but not quite as busy. Parents, when you're at bedtime, parents just want to get the bath going, get them to bed because they have other things going on. Grandparents should stop and smell the baby shampoo. From a kid's perspective, mommy and daddy have all kinds of boundaries and established consequences for poor decisions. But grandpa and grandma would never, ever lose their cool or dole out punishments. Even after the grape juice spills on the white carpet, or the car keys are dropped down the sewer grate, or the boys playing in the basement hide grandpa's basin wrench. Third, when faced with a blunder by your grandchildren, see if somehow you can make it a teachable moment. This is another example of opportunities parents don't always have time or patience for. The lost and found basin wrench was a clear chance to pass on a life skill or lesson. After all, the tool had already grabbed the attention of those 2 curious boys. Now, in retrospect, there's no way that Grandpa Fritz was going to climb under a sink and demonstrate how it works. No way. But in that same scenario, I can imagine my own father taking the time to describe to his grandchildren how a basin wrench can loosen or tighten things in hard-to-reach places. Now, I'm not as handy as either of those men, my dad or my grandpa, but I am definitely a fan of teachable moments. Of course, this chapter is not about basin wrenches. It's about leaving a legacy of positivity and also being aware of how a single incident can damage a relationship. These words, this chapter, may also be a way for me to bring closure to my long-standing regret for shutting out and holding a grudge against my own grandparent, my own grandfather. Yikes. I forgot how emotional that was. Okay. We just talked about this. You know what? Stop and smell the baby shampoo. This was a fun chapter to write because it's about more than that. You can do what parents can't. This is chapter 3 in the book, actually. You can appreciate a dandelion bouquet. My wife had dandelions in her hair just last week because our 3-year-old grandson brought her a bouquet of dandelions. And she brushed it out. Well, I brushed it out. And she said, no, keep it there. Okay. There are a lot of jokes about Gen Z or millennials moving back home or never leaving home. Anybody here have their kids move back in for a while, season? 3 of our kids did live at home after college, and actually it was a great season of connecting with them as adults. Sitting around the kitchen table, talking about hopes and dreams. I love that season. These days we're back to an empty nest. Well, it's not just singles who boomerang back to home. It's married couples with babies.